Today's destination is ancient Egypt, a civilization known for its grand pyramids, stunning art, mummified bodies, and, well, a whole lot of challenges for survival, disease, and injuries. You might think life in a place like ancient Egypt was a breeze, but in reality, it was no easy feat. Let's start with the Nile River, the lifeblood of this civilization. Sure, it allowed farming and settled living, but it also brought along some unwelcome guests. Take the schistosoma worm, for instance. This sneaky critter could enter through your skin and wreak havoc in your bloodstream, causing serious harm as it wandered through your organs. Bilharzia, a parasitic disease, wasn't a pleasant souvenir from a dip in the river either. It entered through the skin and caused abdominal pain and fever. And if that wasn't enough, malaria was lurking around like a sandstorm. Imagine flu-like symptoms that could potentially lead to the end of your life. Oh, and the crocodiles? They weren't just a cool hieroglyphic design, they were real, and they were definitely a threat. On the topic of healthcare, ancient Egyptians struggled with dental problems big time. Their diet, heavy in grains, led to cavities galore. Toothaches were a real daily grind. Pun intended. The lack of modern medical care meant even a minor illness could be life-threatening. Their remedies were a mix of magic and hope. Their medical knowledge wasn't exactly cutting edge. It was more about spells than scalpels. Healthcare by ancient standards? Let's just say we're glad for modern advancements. The labor. But wait, there's more. If you were in the service of a ruler, your fate could be tied to theirs. Back then, the honor of being buried alongside your ruler seemed like a promotion. But let's face it, that's not exactly a job perk we'd sign up for today. Now, if you were working in construction, think humongous pyramids, you weren't just lugging blocks, you were risking life and limb. The lack of advanced tools meant heavy lifting and dangerous conditions. It wasn't all glamorous architectural feats, it was blood, sweat, and limestone. Limited technology meant back-breaking labor for everything, be it farming or constructing the monumental pyramids. And the sun? Oh boy, it wasn't just for suntanning. Sunburns and heat stroke were the unwanted gifts from that scorching Egyptian sun that the laborers had to deal with to avoid unwanted repercussions from their masters. Forget SPF, they needed some serious shade. The weather. The scorching summers and unpredictable Nile floods weren't just inconveniences. They were survival hurdles. Imagine relying on the Nile for survival. Well, that's kind of fun to say, relying on the Nile for survival. Its annual floods are a blessing and a curse. Agriculture depended on these floods, but a mist or excessive flood could mean famine and starvation for not just you, but the whole community. Sure, these floods brought fertile silt that made agriculture possible, but too much or too little? That was trouble brewing on the horizon. A mist flood could mean parched fields and famine, while excessive floods could wash away precious crops and homes, leaving devastation in their wake. Failed crops and scarcity of food led to widespread hunger, affecting not just the poor, but the entire social fabric. It wasn't just about missing a meal, it was about surviving through lean times, scraping for sustenance. Egypt wasn't immune to the harsh reality of dry spells either. A lack of rainfall meant struggling crops, barren lands, and a looming threat of widespread starvation. Water scarcity wasn't just a modern woe, it was a survival nightmare back then. The culture. Then the fixation on death and the afterlife in ancient Egypt was more than a cultural fascination, it profoundly influenced daily life and posed its own set of challenges for survival. This wasn't your run-of-the-mill curiosity, it was a full-blown cultural fixation that shaped every aspect of their existence. The idea of existence beyond death shaped every aspect of their lives, from birth to burial. This deep-seated belief in an afterlife had tangible effects on how people lived and, more importantly, how they prepared for the hereafter. Their religion wasn't just about temples and prayers, It was about preparing for what came after kicking the bucket. The Grand Pyramids, those weren't just cool landmarks, they were these grandiose tickets to the afterlife, believed to be portals for the deceased to journey on. And building these pyramids, it wasn't just stacking stones, it was a colossal investment of time, resources, and manpower. Think of the energy and labor that went into constructing these mammoth structures. All that effort wasn't for earthly gains, it was about securing a smooth passage to the afterlife. And mummification? Oh, that was a whole production. It wasn't just about preserving bodies, it was a sacred ritual aimed at ensuring a VIP pass to the next realm. That meant specialized tools, expertise, and precious resources dedicated to preparing the departed for their cosmic journey. Now, here's where it gets fascinating. What they took to the afterlife wasn't just limited to their physical body. Burial chambers were packed to the brim with all sorts of goodies: gold, treasures, food, even beloved pets. Can you imagine hoarding your best stuff for the afterlife journey? This wasn't just a personal choice, it had societal implications. The distribution of wealth and resources wasn't just about the living, it extended to securing a comfortable afterlife. The elite had their grand tombs, but even commoners invested considerable resources to ensure their departed loved ones had a cushy journey beyond. But here's the kicker, all this focus on the afterlife had its trade-offs. It wasn't just about spirituality, it diverted attention, resources, and labor away from immediate earthly needs. So while they were planning for the big beyond, it really impacted day-to-day survival in the here and now. The obsession with death and the afterlife wasn't just a quirky cultural trait, it shaped economies, resource allocation, and society itself. The education. Alright, let's talk about education in ancient Egypt. Spoiler alert, it wasn't exactly an equal opportunity affair. If you were hoping for an ancient version of universal education, think again. Education was a privilege reserved for the elite, the cream of the ancient Egyptian crop. Your average man, or in this case, your average scribe, didn't have access to the coveted halls of knowledge. The Library of Alexandria might sound like the dream for bookworms, but it was more like an exclusive club membership. When we talk about literacy, we're not just talking about reading hieroglyphics for fun. Nope, it was a skill limited to a select few, mostly priests and scribes. They were the gatekeepers of knowledge, holding the keys to deciphering and recording the secrets of their time. And surprise, surprise, it wasn't an equal playground for men and women. While boys from elite families might have had a shot at education, the story wasn't the same for girls. Their paths were more likely confined to household duties and traditional roles, with education not high on the priority list. For the few women who received an education, it wasn't the same quality or depth as their male counterparts. They might have learned household management or basic skills, but the doors to advanced knowledge remained mostly shut to them. The practices. Now, time to dive deeper into the wild world of sacrificial rituals in ancient Egypt. It wasn't just about saying a prayer and calling it a day. These rituals were a whole journey into the unknown. Animals played a starring role in these ceremonies. Cattle, birds, and even fish were brought to the sacrificial altar. The idea: appease the gods, secure blessings, or maybe just ensure the cosmic harmony of the universe. But hold on, it gets even more intriguing. Human sacrifices? Yep, they weren't entirely unheard of, although they were pretty rare and saved for special occasions. Think royal or religious ceremonies. Some folks might have ended up accompanying their ruler into the afterlife, a kind of cosmic +1. These sacrifices weren't the norm, they were exceptional events, often linked to significant religious or royal ceremonies. Individuals chosen for such rituals might have held high status or been connected to the ruling elite. The reasons behind these sacrifices remain a subject of debate among historians and Egyptologists. Some theories suggest these sacrifices were intended to accompany high-ranking individuals into the afterlife, serving as companions or guardians on their cosmic journey. Others propose that human sacrifices might have been linked to propitiating gods during times of crisis, or to ensure divine favor and cosmic harmony. Yet not all sacrifices involved shedding blood. Symbolic rituals were just as vital. Imagine a mummy undergoing the opening of the mouth ceremony, ensuring they could enjoy the afterlife's culinary delights. It was like setting the table for eternity. And offerings? Oh, they were the bread and butter of religious ceremonies. Food, incense, or shiny trinkets. Gifts that said, "Hey, cosmic forces, we appreciate you." Foundations of grand structures like temples or pyramids. Sometimes animals or objects were buried beneath them as a sort of spiritual insurance policy, ensuring stability and divine protection. Talk about going the extra mile for construction safety. But wait, there's more. Ceremonial burials weren't just about saying goodbye. Some individuals might have been ritually sent off to the afterlife, not necessarily as sacrifices, but as protectors or companions for the deceased. The conflict and invasions. Let's now strap in for a tale of ancient Egyptian life that involves some unexpected guests. Neighboring civilizations with invasion on their minds. So picture this, you're an ancient Egyptian minding your business, tending to your crops or sculpting some hieroglyphics, and then bam! Invaders from neighboring lands decide to crash your peaceful Nile-side picnic. Not exactly the ideal scenario, huh? Invasions weren't just a chapter in history books, they were real, disruptive events that turned everyday life upside down. It wasn't just about losing your favorite farming spot, it was about the upheaval of entire communities, the disruption of trade, and the looming threat of losing your precious sense of security. Think about the impact on society. It wasn't just about losing a few resources, it was about potential conflict, uncertainty, and adapting to new rulers or influences. Suddenly, your neighbor isn't just the person borrowing sugar, they're the ones holding a siege outside your city walls. And let's not forget the stress on leadership. Rulers had to strategize, negotiate, or sometimes resort to good old-fashioned battles to protect their turf. It wasn't just about sitting on a fancy throne, it was about safeguarding the kingdom from outside threats. But hey, here's where it gets interesting. These invasions weren't just about swords and shields, they often brought cultural exchange too. It was a mixed bag. Yes, conflict and tension, but also an exchange of ideas, technology, and sometimes even mutual understanding, albeit after some sword clanging. As we bid farewell to this captivating era, let's remember the ancient Egyptians for their unwavering spirit, their ingenuity amidst adversity, and their timeless legacy that continues to captivate and intrigue us to this day. Let us know what you'd like to see next, and until our next escapade through the records of history, don't forget to like and subscribe before you leave. Farewell for now, fellow adventurers.